Hi, I'm Pauline Harrison, and we are here at Money20 in Las Vegas. Would you like to give yourself an introduction for us, please?
Hi, I'm Jose Marti, Head of Global Sales for PayRetailers. We're here in Las Vegas for Money20.
Fantastic. And how are you finding the event so far?
Spectacular. I mean, I've always said this is a must-go event in the Fintech space, in the payment space. It's probably the strongest payment space or Fintech space to be at.
And so I'd love to hear more about PayRetailers' e-commerce payment expertise, because obviously you've got a lot of it. And I guess the question is, why LATAM and why now?
I mean, LATAM is definitely an emerging market. It's huge from not only the adaptation to online purchases, but as well as population size, right? You take a look at a country like Mexico, right, with 130 million in population. Mm-hmm. If you can target at least 1%, 2%, 3% of that, you're talking about a good amount of people.
Right, for sure. And what industry in the e-commerce ecosystem experienced the most growth, and in which country?
We're seeing a lot of adaptation in the e-learning space, right? So a lot of these online schools, online MBAs, for example, that are based in Europe, mm-hmm. but are targeting the Latin American market, right? So we have some huge schools, especially in Spain, that most of their students are in Latin America. So they have difficulties paying for those MBAs, and through PayRetailers' payment link, they can send a link, and the student can pay for their tuition.
Yeah, it just makes it all so much easier for everyone involved, right?
It gives the students the option to pay with their most common payment options in that specific country, right? You take a look at a market like Brazil, 65% of online consumers are paying with a online bank transfer. It's called Pix. So if you allow your student to pay with that, they avoid cross-border fees, they avoid right. Debit and credit card fees, or perhaps their bank doesn't even allow for international transactions. So it connects Latin America to the European world, or even if it's a US-based merchant, like we're here in the US, that wants to accept payments in Latin America. That's also a very, very strong use case for our platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what other payment methods are the most in demand across industries at the moment?
That's a great question, because if we were sitting here perhaps 3-4 years ago, I would tell you that cash online solutions right. are very, very heavy. With COVID and with the pandemic, we've seen a shift into more online bank transfers. Going back to Brazil, 3-4 years ago, everybody was paying with a cash online solution called Boleto. Mm-hmm. So you would print out a barcode, you'd go to your local convenience store, pay in cash, and the API call would trigger the transaction. Post-COVID, or during COVID, people had to adapt to Pix. So Pix has taken over the market. It's an online transaction, and less we're seeing, at least in Brazil, less cash solutions. So definitely the LATAM e-commerce market has shifted into an instant online bank transfer solution or instant online bank transfer preference.
Right. And what technologies are shaping these payment methods, especially when we think about e-commerce and online things?
So I think everybody is, and the shift in Latin America is to partner with the central bank of that specific country, right? Pix is powered by the central bank of Brazil. Mm-hmm. Colombia is now looking to do the exact same thing, because it's cheap for the consumer, it's instant, it's safe, it's secure, and it's backed by the central bank of that specific country. So right. consumers feel very, very safe when doing these purchases.
Absolutely. And so how does the PayRetailers localized payment strategy help expansion for retailers in the space as well?
So what PayRetailers is doing that kind of differentiates us from the rest is that exactly that you're asking, right? The localization. And what I mean by that is having local people, having a local office, and kind of operating LATAM, not as a region, but as country per country per country. Because what a lot of people make a mistake at is thinking that LATAM is a region, mm-hmm. and everything's the same. But you take a look at Brazil, you have Argentina next to it, and it's like two different worlds. So what we're doing is making sure that we have local presence in each one of the markets, understand local processing in each one of the markets, mm-hmm. and take that knowledge and implement it on a cross-border mentality or in a cross-border functionality. Sorry.
Right, so it's about finding out the needs and demands of these specific places and people, right? You can't take one solution and slap it all over the entire continent.
Exactly. And given the differences between each and every one of the countries, even though they're right next to each other, that it's very important to understand at a local level, even if the merchant or the e-commerce is based in the UK or based in Europe. We need to understand how the local consumers operate and how they want to make the purchases to allow these merchants to properly enter these regions. And when I say regions, I mean countries, because it's so different. It's so different when you're comparing a Colombia to a Chile, to a Peru, to an Ecuador. It's not like in the European Union where you have some similarities.
Right.
It's completely different worlds from consumer purchases to regulation to currencies. It's quite complex.
Yeah, and what do you think the future of this space is going to look like? What's happening next in the next few years or so?
As more people in the Latin American region are getting banked, we're going to look at what happened in Brazil, right? So these online bank transfers that are backed by the central government. Okay, so Pix is a great example, as I mentioned earlier. Colombia is starting to do the same thing, and I believe that each and every single one of the central banks in Latin America is going to come out with their version of Pix, right? Because it's safe, secure, quick, and cheap for the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to chat to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.